Hello everyone and welcome back to Age Nagash, which is a channel dedicated to Age of Sigmar. And in this video we're going to talk about the pre-order that has just gone up for the new Khorne Dragon. And the new Khorne Dragon, of course, has got a name, and it is Vorgaroth the Scarred, that's the guy on top of it, and Skalok, the Skull Host of Khorne. So that, of course, is the dragon herself. Now, this dragon, they have been teasing us with it for quite a long time now. I remember going to a open day at Warhammer World for like Age of Sigmar, and probably about 2 years ago now, maybe 3 years ago now, and they had the first sort of model of it there. They were still playing around with it, and I remember seeing it and thinking it was absolutely huge, as one of its wings was the size of a Dreadsaurian for the Seraphon or the Lizardman, and I think it may have came down in size since then, just so you know, for like the final product, but it's still absolutely huge from all the pictures they've shown us, and it's lovely to finally have it go on pre-order, so we actually know a release date for it, and the few people who are going to get it can finally get their hands on it, which will be very nice to maybe, if you're lucky in a game, to see it across the table from you. Well, I say if you're lucky in that case, but you know, yeah, even if it kills half your army, it's still a very nice looking model to see. And of course, if you haven't already seen it, go on the Vorgaroth website, take a look at it. I'll be putting some pictures they've put on there onto this video so you can see it as it's playing as well. And it is lovely, of course, but the only thing is obviously it is the biggest Age of Sigmar model they have made, so of course it is going to be the most expensive by far, as this thing is absolutely huge. So the price of the Vorgaroth, the Scarred, and Skalok, the Skull Host of Khorne, is going to be £375. So yeah, that is it is expensive, but you know, for the model you're getting, I think it's a fair price, especially compared to how much Games Workshop and Forge World can charge their models for, as I was expecting this model to be about £500, so £375. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that price. You know, it's at some point in the future, it's, if you really want the model, it's doable, that price. It's not like the like these huge ridiculous models you get from Forge World that, you know, like £800, or you know, like £1,100, or crazy expensive. This one is affordable at some point in the future, I think, for most people. So yeah, that's good. I'm happy with that price. And then let's move on to its lore. So I'm just going to read the blurb it has here on their website. So it says, legends tell of this trail of slaughter left behind Vorgaroth the Scarred and Skalok, the Skull Host of Khorne, their path of destruction having run for millennia, their victims beyond count, although one would not hesitate to kill the other if given the chance. Together they have razed civilizations to the ground. Whenever the mortal armies of Khorne falter, it is Vorgaroth and Skalok that the Blood God sends to turn the tide of battle in his favour. So just a little bit of lore there for now. I'm sure they're going to tell us more about them in the future. However, we could probably guess this by just looking at this model. Obviously this is the thing that the god of blood and slaughter, Khorne, of course, would send down to turn the tide of battle in his favour, because it's the biggest model that we're aware of he has at his disposal. So just looking through the pictures now, you can see that this thing is, like I keep on saying, absolutely huge. I'm just wondering how big the guy on top is, because he must be bigger than Archaon, or at least the same size as Archaon. So there's that. And of course the dragon is called you know, the Skull Host of Khorne, and you can see all of the skulls within the dragon's body, particularly on the tail. It does remind me a little bit of Dorgorath for Archaon. Forgive me if that's pronounced wrong. I believe the mount for Archaon is called Dorgorath. How it has all the skulls and the Stormcast helmets within its body. Now with the Skull Host of Khorne, this dragon, I can't see that she has any Stormhead, you know, helmets or anything like that within her, but you know, plenty of skulls to please Khorne there, I do think. And then I think what is a lovely part of this is the throne for you know, the dragon, and for obviously Vorgaroth, who sits on top of it, is lovely. It looks like it's actually just made from part of the dragon's flesh, mixed with skulls, rib cages, and looking at it now, I can see some Stormcast helmets in there as well. So that is lovely. You know me, I always love decapitated Stormcast with their intestines ripped out. Any way to show that a Stormcast had died. I think is lovely. So great to see that here as well. And it's much nicer than just, I don't know, a chair or a saddle for this guy to sit on. It's really, really fitting in the Khorne manner, I do feel. And then going on to talk about the guy on top, I think a lovely detail model. Now for me personally, I do know he is called Vorgaroth the Scarred, and forgive me if I'm not pronouncing that right. So obviously he's quite disfigured in the face. You know, he's seen a fair few battles, I'd say, pretty up close and personal. It does remind me of a general that just hides at the back. However, his head for me is a bit too disfigured now, so I'm just going to give him a helmet or something. But I'm that sort of person. I'd much rather someone have a like a really cool helmet, especially Khorne's got plenty to choose from, rather than just a bare head. But no, it's still a very nice model, and you can also see the detail on the dragon's face and the scales, and it is lovely done, especially for such a big model where, you know, it's very easy for there to be big empty space on a model this size. And yeah, of course, there's like, you know, there's some like flats of like, I don't know, like going down one of its legs and stuff where there's not that much detail going on, but there is more than enough detail in other places to make up for it. Like the wings have got plenty of scars and stuff on them to make them interesting as well. And that's something they do say about the wings, is that if you do buy this model, they do suggest pinning the wings, just because they are pretty heavy, and they'll show you details in the instruction of how to do that. Now I'm sure most people are going to pin this model anyway, because if you buy this model, you probably have worked at least with resin before, so you know pinning is a good idea. But just the size of this model means that you don't want anything to break off it, because you're going to put a lot of time and effort into building and painting it. And then we go to look at the other pictures, and they're really just pictures going around the whole model. There's like a 360 picture you can look at. There's also pictures of what it's like before it is painted as well, just so you can get a bit of an idea to see where there are gaps and stuff where you're going to need to use green stuff and so on. But no, it does look like a fantastic model. Really can't wait to see it on the table. And it's been quite a long time for me anyway to see this model, like, you know, go on pre-order, because like I said, I went to Age of Sigma Open Day at Warhammer World, and I do think it was 3 years ago, because it's the first year I got into the Age of Sigma. I remember seeing it and thinking, oh, that's really cool, I can't wait until that comes out. And then obviously like 3 years later they've just released it on pre-order, so it has taken quite a long time, but it is finally here. And I do wonder, looking at this model, like how does it support itself, because it's got its two back legs and its feet obviously touching the ground, and then it's got one of its front legs, its front right leg, on top of a like collapsed pillar to support it, you know, just for the model to stay upright. And then it's got its front left leg and, you know, paw outstretched, you know, like underneath its head, sort of leaning in a direction to its left. And I just sort of wondered, like, if you pushed it, how easy it would be for it to fall over. I'm sure maybe not. Maybe most of its weight is put onto the more stable parts of the model, but we'll have to wait and see, because this does not come with a base as far as I am aware. So that's just stuff about the model and then the lore. So and then going into its rules, of course this is Age of Sigma, so you can look at them free on the website. So firstly, I'm going to start by saying this guy costs 1,200 points, so by far the most expensive model we have in Age of Sigma, and that's both by real cost and by point cost, because 1,200 is 400 points more than the Gash. So yes, he is really expensive. So of course, hopefully this is going to reflect in his rules. So to start with, looking at the wheel, his movement is 14 inches, and that is the same for most dragons. So yeah, pretty fast, but for a model this big, could have maybe have liked it to be a little bit faster, but of course this is a monster, so it will get weaker the more damage you take. So he starts with moving 14 inches when he's taking 0 to 5 wounds, and then when he takes 6 wounds, etc., it will go to 11-inch movement. So then we look at his save, and he's got a 3+ save. Yes, that is really nice, really good. Really did expect to see that on this model, just because of how many points he costs. If it was a 4+ save, just that little change there would definitely, in my opinion, make me feel like that price point for this model is a bit too high for how durable he's going to be. But no, a 3+ save, like I say, is very good. You can have, I believe it's called Bronze Flesh, is it? The prayer that the Slaughter Priests have, that pick a Khorne unit and it makes it +1 to their save, so you could give it a 2+ save, and then you chuck a Mystic Shield on there as well from a allied Slays of Darkness wizard, and then he's got a 2+ save re-rolling ones. So yeah, you can make this guy very durable. And then his Bravery 10, I expect nothing less. This guy sounds like he is as epic as you can get. And then we move on to his wounds, which he has 30. So you can give this guy a 2+ save re-rolling ones, and with 30 wounds, which is pretty good. I mean, I think we should start by saying that these are just the first stats we've looked at, and there's nothing there that's really bad. I mean, moving 14 inches would usually be amazing. This guy, because he's so big, might make him, would have maybe liked a little bit more so he can move around the table a bit easier, but that's still good. And yeah, really nice stats to begin with, and 30 wounds, obviously the most wounds anything else has got in Age of Sigmar, but because of the sheer size of this model, again, I expect nothing less, so really nice to see that there. Now we're going to move on to his attacks, so we're going to start with his missile weapons, which is a welcome addition to Khorne. I'm sure all Khorne players out there will agree. So he's got a missile weapon that's got a 20-inch range, which I'm not too sure if it is the longest range for a dragon shooting attack in AoS, but I believe it is, because 20-inch range, and it's called White Hot Balefire. Now it's got 3 attacks, hits on a 4, wounds on a 2, -3 rend, d6 damage. So yeah, very nice, long range there. He can even snipe out enemy characters and things, you know, like spellcasters hiding at the back. And of course, if they're a hero and they've got you know, the Lookout Sir rule about, they're going to be, you know, -1 to hit those heroes. And of course, this guy's bogged down in combat. He can only really shoot at what's in front of him. But put that aside, if he's not in combat for some reason, because when we look at his melee attacks, you're going to want to get this guy in combat. His shooting attack is pretty good for potentially sniping out enemy characters, because the range is not bad at all for what this guy is. And for even just shooting out crew for war machines and stuff like that, or war machines themselves these days, it could be very useful. And I think the best thing about this attack, 4 to hit, yeah, could have maybe have liked a 3+ there, but it's again, it's shooting, and you're getting a 2+ to wound, and -3 rend. That'll definitely be the best thing about this attack, because a lot of things are not going to get a save against -3 rend. If they are, it's only going to be a 6+, maybe a 5+ if they're lucky. So yeah, that's really good there. I mean, if this guy tries to shoot Nagash, obviously he's a monster, so he's not going to benefit from the Lookout Sir rule. And even if Nagash, well, Nagash will be using his command ability more likely, so his reroll and save rolls are 1, but he's still saving on a 6, rerolling 1s. And of course he's got death saves after that, but still that's a very good rend there, -3. And then going into the damage, d6. Now that is very, you know, waveable. It's not very a solid damage characteristic, because it could be when you get all these 3 attacks through and you've managed to get 3 1s, that's obviously going to be very disappointing there, and it's only going to do like 3 damage obviously. But if you do manage to get all these, you know, 3 attacks through, and you're really lucky and you get 3 6s on the damage, absolutely devastating there. And again, very nice to see. So yeah, shooting attack solid. I believe that's probably the best one Khorne has. There are good things like the Bloodthirsters have a few good shooting attacks, and you get the Skull Cannon and stuff, but I think this is more likely the best one they have got out there for them. Right, yeah, so that's a good welcome addition for the missile weapons. And again, you would expect nothing less, would you? Because it's a 1200 point model. So yeah, that's fine. And then going on to the melee weapons. The first one is Skull Cleaver Axe of Khorne. So this is obviously going to be from Vorgaroth, the Scarred, so they go on top of the dragon. Now, it only has a 1-inch range attack, which, you know, in lore reasons and stuff, I don't understand how this guy is so high up on his dragon and he can still hit people with this axe. It's only got 1-inch range, but I'm sure he climbs down and he starts attacking them. But anyway, on to the actual characteristics. So, it's got a 1-inch range, 12 attacks, 3's to hit, 3's to wound, -2 rend, and 2 damage. that's very nice. I was expecting that almost when I was just reading towards the end. Thought it was just going to be a 1 damage because that's a lot of attacks. However, as it is so many points this model, 2 damage again is really nice to see there. And yeah, that's not bad, because usually with these big monsters, I mean, like if I look at, I don't know, a Abhorrent Ghoul King on a Terrorgeist, for example. Obviously the Abhorrent Ghoul King, his attacks are nothing compared to the Terrorgeist. But then again, the price of that, I believe, is 400 points, and that is a third of how much points this guy costs. So yes, that is very good to see that he is definitely able to do some damage by himself. And then we move on to the more exciting attacks, I believe. So we've got Eviscerating Claws. So that's got a 3-inch range. It's D6 attacks. It's a 3 to hit, a 3 to wound. It's got again a lovely -3 rend, but this is a like star characteristic. So looking down at the damage table, the rend will get weaker the more damage the dragon takes. So you know, essentially, the longer he's in the fight, the more his talents and stuff are getting broken, all those sorts of things. So you know, it makes sense in the law there. But no, starting with -3 rend is really good, and then it's 3 damage. So again, the only minor thing I'd say about this attack is it's D6 attacks for this one. So it could be really good. It could be, you know, obviously not so good. You know, if you, don't get me wrong, if you roll a 6 for generate how many attacks this weapon's going to have, you'll be laughing, because 3 damage on each of this, you know, weapons attacks is really good, especially with -3 rend. Not many things are going to save against that, like we said with the shooting attack. However, I think I would have just preferred a flat like 3 attacks instead of D6, just because it's more reliable. But no, it could be that time when, you know, obviously when you really need it, you could roll 1 for the attacks, then you could be disappointed. But the time when you really need it and you roll a 6 and you manage to, you know, knock out the park with the damage this guy can do, could really make up for it. So yes, that's all good there. And then moving on to the next one, Carnivorous Jaws. So again, a 3-inch range on this attack. So we're seeing quite a few 3-inch range. That's good. And then attacks 2, force to hit, and then it is a 2 to, you know, wound, and then -2 rend, 3 damage. I mean, it's not a bad attack, but I am a little bit disappointed with this, because this is the first time I'm reading these rules as I'm doing this video. Yeah, I am disappointed with that, because it's just like a normal dragon attack, apart from instead of the damage being D6, it's 3. And I know I have just said on a D6 characteristic I'd rather it be a 3 than a D6, so I'm not trying to contradict myself too much. But I was expecting a bit more from this dragon. I mean, the size of its jaws are, I mean, I haven't seen the model in person in its like final form, but I don't know, the size of its jaws are probably the size of, I don't know, a Stormcast maybe bigger. So it's a lot bigger than a normal dragon's jaws, I'm trying to say. So I would expect maybe at least a few more attacks. I mean, -2 rend is good, but, and a 2 plus the wound is good as well, but that is a star characteristic. So again, the more damage the model takes, the worse the characteristic it's going to go. I mean, like when it's on its final legs. So, well, when I say that, I mean 21 plus wounds. So when it's got 9 wounds left, it's going to need a 6 to wound with its jaws. And I know some dragons out there, its wounding characteristic for their jaws does not get weaker. So I am, in all honesty, disappointed with its carnivorous jaw attack there. By no means, you know, is it bad, but for a model cost 1200 points, I expect its, you know, that attack to be a lot better than a normal dragon's attacks, you know, for their jaws anyway. But anyway, moving on to the last attack here, which is the brass plated tail. And I'm sure, you know, if you look at those pictures and stuff that are on Forge World, you will see the lovely sculpted tail it has for that. And it does quite rightly deserve its own attack characteristic, I feel. So it's got a 3-inch range. So the dragon's attacks itself in melee, all 3 of them have a 3-inch range, which is really nice. And then its attacks are 3d6, so potentially not many, but potentially a enormous amount of attacks there. It needs a 4 to hit, a 4 to wound, a -1 rend, and a 3 damage. So that is really good because, you know, you're at least going to get 3 attacks. What, you know, it's not bad. It's not like 1d6 or something. It's 3 attacks at least is pretty good, going to a maximum of 18 attacks. A 4 to hit and a 4 to wound. Yeah, it's a bit generic. It's not the best to hit and to wound characteristic there is out there, certainly. But, you know, it could be worse. It could be a 5 or a 4 or something. And then -1 rend. Would be really nice to have -2 rend, but -1 for a tail attack, you know, like I say, it's not bad. And then 3 damage really makes up for it. That's the best part about that brass plated tail attack. Definitely the 3 damage. If you get really lucky, I mean, this is going to be absolutely great at clearing hordes. Again, like I said, if you get lucky on those attacks, even if you roll, let's just say, I don't know, a 10 on your 3d6 to see how many attacks you get, and you're going against a horde, and I don't know, let's just say you get pretty lucky if you're to hit into a wound characteristic, and I don't know, you get 6 attacks go through, because -1 rend against a horde, you know, they're probably going to struggle to save against that. And then, like I say, you got, you know, 6 attacks that went through at 3 damage each. You're looking at 18 damage to that horde, and then of course, unless they've gonna have Inspiring Presence put on them later on, it's going to cause huge amounts of damage to them. Just in case the enemy tries to stop this thing with all their chaff, this guy would definitely be able to punch through. So there are its attacks. So it's got 1 missile weapon and 4 melee weapons. So in total 5 attacks. It is a lot of attacks. Like I said, there's a couple of little things that I think are going to be made a little bit better for this guy, just because of how many points he costs. But overall, I'd say it's good. You're getting your value there. But of course, we are still going to look at the abilities, because obviously sometimes on Warsrolls the abilities are the most important part, rather than their basic characteristics at the top. So looking down at its abilities and the bottom part of the Warsroll, it says description: Vorgaroth the Scarred and Skalok the Skull Host of Khorne are a single named model. Vorgaroth is armed with the Skull Cleaver Axe of Khorne, and then it just says this model can fly, and then it talks about the mount. Skalok, the Skull Host of Khorne, attacks with her white hot balefire, excoriating claws, carnivorous jaws, and brass plated tail, which we've just talked about a moment ago. And then we actually go into the abilities now. So the first one is monstrous trophies, and to start with, it tells us a bit about the lore. So, believing only the greatest of beasts can hope to challenge his might, Vorgaroth hunts the realms, seeking out the mightiest to do battle with. So that's a little bit about the lore about this ability, and then going into what it actually does on the table. You can reroll failed wound rolls for attacks made with this model's Skull Cleaver Axe of Khorne that target a monster. In addition, if the unmodified wound roll for an attack made with the Skull Cleaver Axe of Khorne is a 6, that attack inflicts D3 mortal wounds on the target in addition to normal damage. Wow, okay, so that's pretty good. Just in case you thought this guy couldn't take down most other monsters out there, he can, basically. This is just what it's confirming. And the Skull Cleaver Axe of Khorne, like I said, it's the guy on top who's swinging this axe. So, you know, you look at it as not being as powerful as the dragon. However, it's got 12 attacks, hits on a 3, wounds on a 3, -2 rend, 2 damage. But what this is saying is if you're going against a monster, you can reroll all failed wound rolls for attacks that target that monster with this axe. And that's not just, you know, failed wound rolls of a 1, that's all of them. And then furthermore, if you get a 6 to wound, and it's an unmodified 6, so you can't try and do some trickery with it, it's a flat 6 to wound, you are now going to also do D3 mortal wounds to that monster, as well as your normal damage. And when I was reading this, not gonna lie, I thought it would be D3 mortal wounds instead of your normal damage. I think, you know, it could potentially be better in case the monster's got a good save, etc. But no, it means if the enemy manages to save that attack, which, you know, remember it's -2 rend, so a little bit tricky, but if they do, they're going to take D3 mortal wounds anyway. And then if they fail that attack, they're going to take the 2 damage and at least 1 other damage from that mortal wound. And potentially, you know, if you get your, you know, 5 and 6s on your D3 mortal wounds and the enemy fails to save that attack as well, you could do 5 damage to them with each of these attacks. And bear in mind, he starts with 12, and it's not like 2d6 attacks, it's a flat 12 attacks he's getting, but doesn't get weaker the more damage he takes. So that is really, really good there, especially against those monsters that, you know, just in case he can't take them down anyway. Because like I say, looking at the attacks of this model, they are all, you know, standard attacks. None of them have stars apart from the brass plated tail, which like I say starts with 3d6 attacks and then goes all the way down when it takes 21 plus wounds to one attack. So this is always going to stay at max 12, which is going to be really useful, especially when this guy gets a bit you know, shot to death in the later turns, shall we say. And then looking at the next ability, so Crushing Bulk. Processing a speed at odds with her immense size, even the nimblest of warriors may be crushed underfoot when Skalok crushes. So going on to what it actually does in the game, roll a dice for each enemy unit that is within 1 inch of this model. After this model makes a charge move on a roll of a 3+, that unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. I mean, yeah, it's a nice ability to have. I thought maybe it would be a bit better because, you know, if you are going to bring her Crushing Bulk into the game to be implemented into rules, bear in mind she's the biggest model there is out there for Age of Sigmar, unless you've got some really old Forge World models. I don't know if they're bigger, but anyway, like currently new biggest model for Age of Sigmar. I thought maybe she would do more than D3 mortal wounds when she charges in. You know, if you're going to bring that into the game, make it like D6. And I know it's really powerful and it might be broken, but this thing costs a absolute ton of points. I mean, or keep it D3 mortal wounds, but don't make it go on a 3+ to trigger it. Just let it happen. I mean, this model's so big. If this, you know, if it's real life and this thing charges into you, I think it's going to cause damage to you before it even, you know, starts to properly attack you. Whatever, it doesn't need to rely on luck from a 3+ of a roll to inflict those mortal wounds. So yeah, I mean, sounds like I'm moaning about it, but I just thought, you know, if you're going to add this into its Warsroll, you could have made it a bit better or just not put it in. But again, it's an extra ability. Not going to say no to it. But I just would have thought it would have maybe been on par with a Stonehorn or something, which is a fraction of its size. But like I say, it's an extra ability, so can't really complain. Just thought it would have maybe been a bit better. Right, then moving on to the next ability, Eternal Hunt. Vorgaroth and Skalok soar through the skies, high above the mortal realms, ever watchful for any sign of bloodshed. Whether battle may be found, they swoop down, bringing death and destruction to all who stand in their way. And then on the table, it means instead of setting up this model on the battlefield, you can place it to one side and say that is in reserve. If you do so, at the end of your second movement phase, you can set up this unit on the battlefield more than 9 inches away from any enemy models. So a couple things to this. Practicality of setting this model up in your deployment phase. In some battle plans, it might not fit in your deployment zone, so maybe they sort of chuck this rule in there just in case, like, if you can't set it up, don't worry, you can bring it down later. However, trying to set this up later in the game when there's models all over the board, and like I said, it's only the end of your second movement phase, but a lot of models can be moved up the board by then, so it could be hard trying to put this on the table and make sure it's 9 inches away from the enemy and all that sort of thing, which, like I say, could be a bit difficult. I mean, it would have been nice if they made it not 9 inches away, maybe 6 inches away. And yes, that would have been maybe potentially broken because that would have meant it could have charged in really easy. But I just meant on a practicality scale. However, the good side of this means that you bring a model this size, not even this size, but something like, you know, Archaon or Bloodthirst or any of those sort of models, and the enemy will point to it and say that looks like a lovely bullet magnet, and then shoot everything at that model and it dies before you even really get to do anything with it if you can't really protect it. So the good thing about this is that the enemy won't be able to try and shoot it to death in the first turn. They're going to have to pick on your other targets, and if you're playing a 2,000 point game and you don't set this model up in your deployment, you're only going to have 800 points on the table, so your army's going to look very small. But when this guy comes down, if you can find room for him, and you know, if the enemy, I say, forgets that you've got this model to bring down, but I don't think they are, because you're probably going to have this on on the side next to the table, like ready to set on. They're going to look at that and think, God, I don't care about anything else they've got in the army. That's the one thing I'm worried about. Maybe, especially the first time they fight one of these things. So, if the enemy does forget, or like has a very elite army and doesn't have much ball control, and accidentally leaves a space, I don't know, probably like the size of an actual tile, next to their, backline shooting or gun line, or like spellcasters or whatever on the back, and then you can drop this guy down behind enemy lines and just burn everything with dragonfire. Yeah, it would work really well. So that's pretty good. Like I say, it's a bit practicality, probably quite hard trying to bring this guy down later in the games. However, it's going to stop him getting shot to death in the first turn, make him a lot more survivable, make the enemy have to spread out across the table, go and can't make sure he can't land anywhere, and then even if they do that, you can just land him in your territory more than likely, and then crack on and he can burn everything in. Like I say, he sets up 9 inches away from the enemy, so even if you're, like I say, you set up 9 inches away, or if your practicality reasons go, I can't go there, there's, I don't know, there's too many enemy units around to be exactly 9 inches away, and too much scenery and stuff like that. And let's say you end up being 15 inches away from the closest enemy unit, he's still got a 20-inch shooting attack. So in that turn, even if he can't make that charge, he's still going to do damage. He's still going to add to the battle, which is very useful in that perspective. He's always going to affect something with his 3 attacks with a mastery round and a d6 damage to each of them. So yeah, he's pretty good, and it's a good way to stop him getting shot to death straight away. And if he's set up in the skies, your 800 points on the table can still try and run around and capture objectives and distract the enemy whilst this guy comes down. So yeah, I think that's a nice ability. Situational, but good. Right, and then we move on to his next ability, which is Fettered Servitude. Vorgaroth demands unwavering obedience from any of Khorne's followers that are in his presence, and will severely punish any warriors who show the slightest sign of fear. And then on the table, what it means is before you take a battle shock test for a friendly Khorne unit wholly within 12 inches of this model, you can say that this model demands unwavering obedience. If you do so, one model in that unit is slain, but you do not have to take battle shock tests for that unit in that phase. If you do not do so, and the battle shock test for that unit is failed, add D3 to the number of models that flee from that unit. So a bit of a double-edged sword. I mean, I don't play Khorne, but I do play against Khorne quite a lot, and my mate has a large Khorne force, and you quite often see a Bloodsecrator there, and in a Gore Pilgrims, battalion, just to make sure basically no one ever has to take battle shock. However, if you're taking this guy, you might still be taking a Bloodsecrator just to give this guy, an extra attack and so on. It's probably not a bad idea, but you might not be able to take the Gore Pilgrims, and you probably can in the point limit you've got. Their 800 points probably can definitely fit it in, as well as all the battle line you need. But you might opt for something else, so you might not have the Bloodsecrator there, or he might only have an 18-inch range bubble because he's not in the battalion, so it might not cover the whole battlefield. And you might need another way to keep your Bloodbreathers in line, or your other units in line. So what I would say about this ability is obviously it's going to affect you whether or not you choose to do. However, if you have got a unit that looks like it's got a good chance of models fleeing from it, I don't know, like a 50-50 chance, I would just kill off a model in your unit just to make sure nothing else flees from it, which is good on its own. But if you don't do it and something does flee, D3 models are going to flee from it as well. And let's say, I don't know, you've got, I don't know, this would fit in a list of a 2,000 point game, but say you've got a big unit of Skull Crushers, and you think, one of them might flee here, there's a good chance of that, and then if one does flee, and then D3 more are going to flee as well, and they're big wound models, it might be best to simply just kill one and make sure another one doesn't flee. So yeah, this ability is a bit good, it's a bit bad, it's however you want to play it. And because it's units wholly within 12 inches of this model, sometimes you're probably going to be able to play it to your strength. You're going to make sure, I don't want this unit to be trapped within the bubble of that ability, so I'm going to make sure one model in that unit is out, so it's not wholly within 12 inches of that, of the big dragon. So they're not going to have to take part in this ability. Or on the other side, it's like, God, these blood reaves in a big trouble here. A lot of them are going to flee. What I want to do, I don't have a command point for, inspiring presence. They're not going to be in range of the blood secretor, so I'm going to make sure they're in range of the dragon, and then make sure one of them dies to sacrifice for this ability. And then what that will mean is no more of them are going to have to die, as in terms of failing their battle test. So we then move on to the next ability, which is Fueled by Death. When battle is joined, the servants of Khorne are overcome with a murderous rage. Such fury sweetens their blood, strengthening Skalok with each ally she devours. And then on the table, what this means is in your hero phase, you can pick one friendly model within 3 inches of this model and roll a dice. If you do so, and the roll is equal to or greater than that model's wound characteristics, that model is slain and you heal up to the number of wounds shown on the slain model's wound characteristics. So pretty simple. Basically, it can eat someone, and then how many wounds they had, you heal back on this model. So yeah, I mean, it has to be to one of your models rather than just an enemy, but that's the Khorne way, isn't it? Khorne does not care from where the blood flows. And this is particularly nice when we're saying that how survivable this model can be. You can fairly easily make it have a 2+ save reroll in 1s, and then put this here and make it be able to heal wounds in each of your hero phases is particularly good, especially if it manages to eat, I don't know, if you've got a Chaos Knight or a Juggernaut, a Skull Crusher, and you think just like a unit of one of them because they've taken a lot of damage, and you think, I don't really need them anymore, so what I really need to do is heal wounds for this model. You can eat them, and remember, like being said, you might have a Skull Crusher with 1 wound left because it's taken a lot of damage from combat where it's retreated. Let's say, so it's been in combat, it's taken a lot of damage, only 1 model left, and it's only got 1 wound remaining. It retreats out of combat, comes back to this guy in your hero phase, and then you can say, right, okay, this guy, the dragon's going to eat that model. That model's only got 1 wound left, so you haven't really got much to lose. And yes, you're going to need to roll to beat its characteristic, but remember, it will also heal equal to that model's characteristics, not how many wounds it had left. So you can lose a, effectively 1 wound left on that Skull Crusher. However, you've healed how many wounds it had in its characteristic. So it could be a very good way to recycle severely damaged units that are not really going to add much to the game. And remember, in that case where it does, just finish that 1 wound Skull Crusher as the example, and it heals back those wounds, and it's wiped out, that Skull Crusher unit, it means that Skull Crusher unit is no more. You're now going to get a blood tithe point, aren't you? Which is going to be very useful, especially with, I can't remember what blood tithe number it is, but the one that lets you be able to make one of your Khorne units be able to attack twice or attack in the hero phase. I think it's something like that. Making this guy be able to attack twice in 1 turn is going to be very useful. So yes, in short, of course, if you're playing a 2,000 point game and this thing's obviously 1,200 points, you're not going to have too many models to sacrifice. But if you need to heal back wounds in this guy who's got an incredibly good save, once it's buffed, like I say, like a 2+ save reroll in 1s, you've just made him that much more survivable, which is going to make the enemy pretty much think that this guy is unkillable, apart from certain things, like anti-splitting axes, Slayer of Kings, Hands of Dust, etc. So then we move on to its last ability, and it's got quite a few of them. This guy's reminding me a bit of Nagash's Warsroll. So its last ability is Wings of Fury. Each beat of Skalok's great wings disrupt the balance of the wind of magic. So subtract 3 from casting and unbinding rolls for enemy wizards models that are within 18 inches of this model. So again, a very nice ability just to tag onto its end of its Warsroll. -3 to cast and unbinding is huge, especially in an 18-inch range radius, and then I'm sure in your Khorne army you're going to have something that's going to allow you to unbind enemy cast, and even if you've got a blood secretor within range of that enemy is going to need to re-roll that failed cast and roll. And yeah, even things against like obviously low level wizards, -3 to cast is absolutely huge, and also to unbinding. And then comparing them to the grand masters of magic, such as Nagash, he gets +3 to casting, and now he's getting, well, no pluses whatsoever. You're putting them on a normal board, and especially, however, we're saying, well, Nagash both the hands of dust, this guy easy. If they're face to face and Nagash hasn't died yet, just bear in mind he's going to have to subtract 3 from casting, so he's not going to get any modifiers. And if he survived a round in combat with this guy to be able to do hands of dust, if he needs to be that close because Nagash doesn't get any buffers to his range of his spells, Nagash is probably going to have taken some damage by then, so he probably wasn't going to get +3 to cast anyway. And then -3 to cast, it's going to be absolutely huge, make it a lot harder for him to get that spell off. So yes, that's very good. And then also a nice addition about this ability, it is enemy wizards, not any wizards. So Khorne has deciphered here that he might think that some magic is actually quite useful. Although he does hate magic, he seems to find magic on his side is not so much of a problem. So your little Chaos Sorcerer Lord, who you might have as an ally in your army to put a Mystic Shield on this guy, if you want to make him that solid, is not going to be affected by this spell. And it means when that, any of your wizards are going to try and cast a spell, and the enemy's going to try and unbind it, and that enemy wizard is within 18 inches of your big dragon, they are now -3 to unbind as well. So it just makes it that much more harder for enemies to get off spells. And if you're playing against Zeech and some death armies, it just makes it that much more fairer for them to try and get off spells. So those are all of his abilities. Took quite a while to go through all of them. We're now going to look at its keywords. So it's got, firstly, Chaos, Mortal, Khorne, Bloodbound, Hero, Monster, Vorgaroth the Scarred, and Skalok the Skull Host of Khorne. So that's obviously it's a long title, and I think its title now might be the biggest one there is. It might now be bigger than Nagash's in our count. We have to see on that. But so the ones that are important here are Chaos. Obviously it's going to have Chaos, Mortal because the guy's on top. That's very useful. Khorne, of course it's Khorne. Bloodbound, an addition. And then Hero, we would expect that. And Monster, of course, it's a bloody monster. And then we look down to its just sort of its match play little profile here, where it just has Khorne unit and just its name, which I'm not going to say it again because I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. And then we go to its unit size, so minimum size 1, maximum size 1. Of course, it's just a single model. And then we go to its points. So yep, 1,200 points. Absolutely a huge amount of points, but we've talked about that already. And then the battlefield role, so it's a leader and a behemoth. And then notes, it's unique, so it's a named character, so it won't be able to take artifacts and command traits, which I don't think anyone's really surprised. I mean, obviously it's a named character because of its title. And the little description they have in the General's Handbook when they say, there are such amazing named characters out there, such as Nagash and I don't know, Archaon, that have their own unique artifacts and special abilities that they do not need an artifact or command trait. I think this guy really does sort of sum it up as he's got a lot of stuff going on. He doesn't really need anything else. So that's that. Right, so what I want to say about this guy, of course he is 1,200 points. Like I say, 1,200 points, whatever way makes it sound even more. He's a lot of points basically. Are you getting your value in points from this guy? In all honesty, it's hard to say because we haven't came across anything like this in AoS before where this guy is more than half your army. I mean, we've always said about things like, if you take Nagash in our army, he's basically half your army, and that's that. But this guy, he's more than half your army. He is a Nagash and a half in points. And, so it's quite hard to judge. If you really want to break it down and compare them to loads of other things out there, you're probably, if you really break it down, you're not getting your value in points here. I mean, 1,200 points is a lot to ask for anything, quite frankly. I mean, like I said, that's more than half an army. And if this guy can do what more than half an army does, and not just in damage, but all the other things, holding objectives and all that, you got to bear in mind. But what I would say is this guy, I mean, you might see him in tournaments and stuff every so often. However, he is just there to look absolutely awesome. Add a huge model to your collection. Even if you don't even play Khorne, this thing would be lovely to have like in a shelf, or if you've got a huge cabinet in your cabinet. And it would be absolutely amazing to take this guy to games. He would be a lot of fun. If you're worried about moving a lot of models across the board, bring this guy to your army, and then you don't really have much points to spend on a lot more models to move across the table anyway. And yeah, I think that would be the real reason you would get this guy. It's not because he's amazing in the game, and you know he is amazing in the game, but you're paying a lot of points for it. You would get him because you're you really love this model. You want to take him in games, and he's in no, you know, means bad. You know, like I said, he's very good. You know, in fact, he is awesome, but he's got a epic amount of point cost to him. So, like I say, he might turn out to be really, really good value for his points, but I think he's more enough just going to be a epic addition to your army and would look absolutely fantastic on the battlefield. And that's how I'm going to sum up. So, like I say, we're going to see how competitive he is compared to, you know, what else you could get for his points in a, you know, tournament and stuff like that. But I think if you take him to a tournament, unless there's been some amazing conversion work and stuff out there, this guy would be the most awesome, you know, out of the box model there will be there. So that's my opinion of this guy. I think he's absolutely awesome. Is he worth his point cost? We'll have to wait and see. Probably not, but putting that aside, he is definitely worth taking your army, in my own honest opinion there. And that's about it. So again, I'll remind how much he costs. He's £375. Yes, he is the most expensive Age of Sigmar model there is currently being, you know, produced from Games Workshop and Forge World. But like I said, I thought it was going to be about £500, so £375 in the future. Maybe he's something I could get along the line. I mean, he would take absolutely ages to build and paint, I can imagine, but he would look lovely on a table. He certainly wouldn't fit in my IKEA cabinet, I doubt. I was looking at him and I was thinking, he might fit in there, sort of comparing to the size of the other models he's shown in a video with. However, the size of his wings alone, I mean, like I said, when I first saw this guy at an open day, his wing was the size of a Dreadsaurian. I don't know if the wings are that big now, but they're probably, you know, at least as big as a Carnosaur, if not bigger. But this guy is an absolutely fantastic looking model, in my own honest opinion. So, that's pretty much the end of the video. It has actually gone on for quite a while just talking about one certain model, but I wanted to let you know how enthusiastic about this model coming out. I'm really happy it's coming out. Even if I'm not going to get it, it would be great to see it in a store, even across the table from me. It would be amazing to try and take down this beast. So again, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you're excited to see this model, you've got any thoughts about the model, you know, it's you know, the model itself, or the what you think how it's going to be implemented into games. So I think, like we said, this is going to be more of a fun thing to take to battles than a super competitive thing. Let me know in the comments. And what I would say, it's just an extra little addition, is that in the lore anyway, if Archaon is going to be the pinnacle of all the Chaos sort of mortal followers, you know, he's the leader, he is the Ever-Chosen, and then this guy rocks up, and in-game he's, well, what is he, 500 more points than Archaon, I believe? Because Archaon, I believe, 700 points, so he's 500 more points than Archaon. He could beat Archaon in a fight unless Archaon gets lucky if his Slayers of Kings, more than likely, especially with his ability against monsters. So if you could beat Archaon in a fight, shouldn't this guy really be the Ever-Chosen? So that's probably looking far too much into the lore and that sort of side. And this guy is, you know, dedicated to Khorne and so on. But let me know what you think if this guy could take down Archaon in a fight, because I definitely think he could. I mean, I've got a painted Archaon without a Chaos Armor because I love the model so much, but I think this model for me is even more epic, definitely. It's just, we've been waiting for a dragon in Warhammer in Age of Sigmar for a long time now, and yes, we had the Star Drake and the Maw Crusher and so on, but we haven't really had too many dragons, and this really sort of does make up for it, and hopefully is a really good, awesome you know, sign to come. And like I say, it's not going to be something you're going to see often because of its price tag is, you know, it's still very expensive at the end of the day, but it's nice that Age of Sigmar's got a really expensive model now compared to the likes of 40k and stuff. It's nice to have that one ridiculously expensive model that we can all dream of having one day. would truly be amazing. Right, so that's the end of the video. Like I say, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video and you're enthusiastic as me about this model coming out and being on pre-order now. Please let me know your thoughts about this on the comments down below, and if there's any sort of video you'd like me to make in the future, please let me know in the comments down below and I'll make sure to read that. So again, I thank you very much for watching this, guys, and like I said, if you have enjoyed this, please like, subscribe and comment down below, as that does all really help me be able to produce more videos in the future, and really makes me understand what sort of videos you guys want to see coming up next. So again, I thank you all very much for watching this video. I hope you're super excited for the new Khorne Dragon coming out, and I'm just going to call it that for now because I don't want to butcher its name again in case I got it wrong. And remember, until next time, Nagash is all and all is one in Nagash.